All right, folks, welcome in to this end of the year report for the financials. As if you do not know, my name is Dave Kurtz. I'm the Assistant Director of Hockey Ops, and I'll be your host for this evening. Jim Martin, the ACHA Treasurer, will be handling most of the heavy lifting. I just want to kind of let you guys know the structure of this. So in a webinar, Jim has a presentation. During that time, if you have questions, you can feel free to click on the Q&A button, which is at the bottom of the of your screen, or sometimes at the top, depending on what format you're using. Either way, click on that. You can send a question, and then at the end of the presentation, we'll go through them. I do ask that you kind of keep your questions, obviously, something related to the financials, the reports, or stuff like that. If there's another question that you might have about something else, feel free to reach out to myself or to Craig. And we'll be glad to try to answer that, but we'll keep the questions based around the financial report and anything having to do with the finances. So if without any further ado, Jim, I'll hand it over to you, and we'll see you guys in a little while.
Great. Okay. So, yep. Feel free to hit me up with any questions, or of course afterwards, after this is all done in that, you can always reach out at any time and ask any questions. I always try to tell everybody that they can always get a hold of me, send me an email or whatever, and I'll do whatever I can to answer any questions you might have too. So it's not a one-time shot that you got to ask everything today. So let me see, we did this before. So, oh yeah, here it is. Let's see. So I'll bring this thing up here. Okay, just made a little PowerPoint here so we can go through that. So basically just a financial overview. Not much has changed with that this year. We still have the lockbox, and payments can come in through there. We're kind of off Point Streak now, and we're waiting for a replacement of that through the website, although that's not something that we've implemented yet in terms of payments and that. And so payments this year were really limited to coming through the lockbox. A lot of schools are registered now, and more schools continue to require that we register with them as a vendor, and they really prefer, especially with the last year, with more and more people at the schools working remotely, they really like the electronic payments and that. And so we have more schools all the time that make their payment via ACH, and we're a vendor in their system, and we get that direct deposit, in essence, is what that is. And then we do get stuff through Square. Square is a different website. We have two websites, basically, the ACHA store, which collects dues and then does the score sheets, and I guess you can order helmet stickers on there if you wanted to. And also then we've got the Square website, which is where all the Warrior stuff is. And so when you see the shop at ACHA Warrior, that's through a Square website, and that's completely separate. It goes into a separate account for sales. We account for it separately and everything else. So we keep that one really separate than everything else too. It's still in Pinnacle though. The account that Square is hooked to is still in our treasury management system, along with all the other accounts of the ACHA. And just like in all prior years for the last like 8 years or so at least, we still have the monthly bank rack and the monthly oversight by the independent CPA firm. So what we're seeing more and more, and what the real theme of this year was just the diversity in how ready teams are to be able to play. Our team itself, we never got to actually play in competition. We did end up practicing a couple times a week, and the school though still prevented any of the sports or any of we report into Student Life, and they said no group activities for anyone, and they didn't do any exemptions for sports clubs, and so we were shut down as that. We did though. We're able to practice, and so we did need to get the USA Hockey insurance, and so that's the level that we chose for when we paid our dues this year. But we weren't really sure when we got started with this in. Well, if you remember the last update, if you were on the phone with the last update, we really spent much of this spring trying to recover from the canceled nationals, to cancel all the contracts, to get all those deposits back, to stop anything that we could that would require spending on that. And fortunately, a lot of the stuff that we had in preparation for that, we didn't have the year or the logo on it. We just had the generic ACHA logo. And so we were able to use a lot of that this year in the national tournaments and that, and the postseason things. And we weren't really sure. I know I was waiting all summer for something to break. I was really hoping that by September, October, we would be able to have some sort of a season and the school would let us start doing things. That turned into November, December, still nothing. And basically, we ended up sitting out the entire season, as did a lot of teams in the ACHA. But it was really a day-to-day thing. We, like all the other teams, were hoping that at some point something would happen where they'd be able to resume in that. And we had to be prepared as an association, the ACHA, to be able to assist those teams with whatever their playing ability was and whenever they would be able to come about and be ready to go. And so we really had to keep the lights on. We still need to have the website. Craig was out fielding calls. Craig was keeping things going. We did a lot of monitoring to see how many teams were able to go. Fortunately, there was enough at the end that we were able to host at least 4 of the 5 national tournaments, which we'll look at too. And really the whole thing, though, was in that uncertainty, since we didn't know what the team playing status would look like, and we didn't know what the level of dues come in, which of course is the revenue that we need to do all these things, like keep the website going, pay stipends, everything else. We really started almost a crisis cash management plan to ensure that we could have enough money in order to ensure basic services could be maintained and be there to support teams when they were ready to go. We were still able to, not many, it was really reduced in terms of the teams that needed score sheets. And, I think I maybe sent maybe a total of 8 referee badge orders, the little like plates that the referees and not too many in that. A lot of helmet stickers though. So there was a lot of teams that were out there either skating or getting kids signed up that still needed helmet stickers. So we did send out some helmet stickers in that, but we really did our best to, try to be extremely conservative in terms of what would be kind of a good case scenario. But, if it is a worst case scenario, what do we actually have and what cash is going to be available and what can we really afford? And we ended up cutting a lot of expenditures, as you'll see when we get to the financials from this year. One thing we did was we greatly reduced staff stipends, which, there was a reduced workload for some of the people who received the stipends, but all of them continued, all the commissioners and and Dave himself running the show today, all the commissioners, all the assistants, the regional guys, all really did a tremendous amount of effort this year without receiving a stipend, and they kept basically the league functioning and really helped get us through the crisis thing here. And so it really was, the mantra was conserving cash in anything that we could, keep any spending to anything, really, really vital, something that would be impactful to a team, something that teams would need when they're ready to come back and start playing in that. And that was really the marching orders for everything this year. And so we really hopefully are now starting to see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. I know I've been getting a number of requests from schools who do have some budget left over and they want to prepay their dues for next year, which is totally fine. We can send them an invoice and hold those dues and apply it next year, but they can maybe shift the budget to cash they might have available this year. But already we're starting to see teams coming back, and even us in Michigan, I think we're probably going to be ready to go, although the school hasn't actually said that, but all the indications are that all the stuff is going to go away and that the governor is going to relax the last of her restrictions in July. So hopefully we'll be back. I'm really planning on it. So hopefully this is the light of the tunnel for those things as well. And so since we really didn't know what teams are going to be able to do, and we didn't know when teams would be allowed to come back, we really divided the dues into 3 categories. And this is one of the products that came out of our study in terms of, what the bare minimum costs and what the bare minimum cost structure we needed to have in order to support those things, like our email system, like the websites and all those other things like that. And so we split it into a 3-level thing. The low level was supporting dues, which was $300. So even if your team's not doing anything, if you could, please pay the $300. That will support the basic infrastructure, allow us to keep things ready to go, at least keep the car in the driveway idling. So if we get the word, we can go, or we'll be there when teams need and are ready to go in that. And then the second level is USA Hockey Insurance, which is $700. That's not anything we get. That's what USA Hockey charges us for every team that submits a roster in the USA Hockey portal. They add those up at the end of the year. if a team's in there, we get charged $700 for it. And so, and as I said, mentioned before, that's what we ended up doing. We paid the $1,000 to pay the supporting dues and $700 for the insurance and that. And then those teams that were fortunate enough to be able to compete then just had to pay the balance of their dues when they were ready. And so once really after the first of the year, a lot of states relaxed and a lot more teams were able to convert what the dues they already paid just by paying. So in D2, then they just had to pay another $700. D3 had to pay another $400. D1 paid another $1,000 when they started play. And so the teams that did end up with the ability to play paid the full amount of dues that they normally would pay in a normal year. And so now we're going through a process of going through this and saying, so a lot of teams paid a higher level than what they use. And so, for example, if we at Michigan State had paid the $1,000 and had not registered our team ever, had not submitted the roster to get the insurance, and all the players had not gotten all their USA Hockey member numbers, then we could, ask and we would be getting an adjustment for the $700, which would be a credit against next year's dues. And so what we'll have on the website is there'll be the standard invoices for dues, just like normal years. So it'll be the 2,000, 1,700, 1,400. I think women's one is 1,650, and there's a new level for women's too now. I don't remember what it is offhand. But those standard invoices will be up there. And if you have a credit, if you did pay a higher level of dues than you used last year, then please send me an email. I'll send you a custom invoice that'll show your credit right on there. You can submit it to the school or submit it to your treasurer for payment in that. And so, but please reach out. I've already, sent out a bunch of these to people that have asked about sending their dues in and that for next year. But just shoot me an email. It's jmartin@achahockey.org or treasurer@achahockey.org, and I'll send you that invoice that'll show you the amount of credit that you have on there too. And then you can just pay the differential and we're all set for another year. So the financial statements are extremely, as you might imagine, much simpler than what we typically have in a year. Just like prior years, we did keep the Warrior Stick team program going, and that's the ability to buy the Warrior Sticks and pants and gloves and such at a discount. And so that website was still up there, and so we still have that as a section on there. We did have the national tournament for five of the divisions, and so we'll see those charges in there on the financials. But the ones in red, we did not have regional tournaments, nor did we have a select team this year. Any expenses for that? No All-Star Challenge, and of course, no national meeting. And so those things were never there. And then the rest of it is in just the administration, which is things like Craig's stipend, the website development, the hosting fees, our software cost, our email cost, all those other things that really keep things going, but don't actually directly translate into a single identifiable program. So we did have the basic nutshell, and I think Craig did go over this in his update in that, but we did for the national tournament have, once again, as we did in way years past, tournaments hosted by a local host and a swap of the ice cost for gate. And so we weren't on the hook for any ice cost. We didn't have any gate revenue. That's a simplification there too. We did have to pay for refs. Well, we do receive a reimbursement from USA Hockey that covers a portion of that, not all of it. And then Ed Giacomucci, as our referee in chief, also has the leeway to assign refs and have them travel. And so we still did have some ref travel costs in that. And all the divisions. It just depends on what referees are available and what the commissioners believe is available for a qualified pool of local refs, and augmenting that where appropriate. And then at all the tournaments, we did have ACHA hockey or ACHA representatives. That Craig was there at all, and Dave went to a couple of them. Ed Giacomucci was out there overseeing the refs and that, and so we did see those things as well, and that all goes into staff travel. And then we did actually have a new service provider for broadcast this year, which seemed to go very well. I was watching some of the coverage on it. I was watching a lot of the D3 coverage, and it was terrific. And the feeds were good. It was very clear. It looked very nice. And we actually did make a little money on that, believe it or not. So, and I think Craig is planning, and I think he went over that in his update, I think he's planning on using that same service provider for next year as well. So wrapping up on what happened in 19 and 20. So with the cancellation of the national tournament, there were still some things in there that we could not get back. There were some things underway that had, for example, there was an update to the seat kills, which is those big green things that went over the empty seats on the one side of the arena. Those were all underway. We couldn't get that back. There was some non-refundable things. There was some non-refundable airfare and travel. We were able to get back all the hotel stuff. And as much as we could, we converted the airfare, the unused airfare, into credits that we would apply this year. And we tried to use those where possible, although, you know, they're all in Southwest, and I don't think they go to Minot nor Bismarck. So there were some other airfare charges there, but we did use those to go to St. Louis for people that needed to travel there. And I know Craig's deployed those credits for some of his ACHA travel as well. And so we do have those things as well. For this year, it looks like we're probably going to come in at about a $13,000 loss, $14,000 loss, but a lot of those are non-cash expenses. So when we look at this, I'll show you some of these line items in there. There was, for example, some hotel commissions that were out there from a prior year. Writing those off, it's a loss in this year, although there is no cash from it. It's just an unrealized income from a prior year. And so, you know, even though it will show a loss in a book, a lot of that is just the accrual accounting from having a canceled event and canceled things last year as well. And then we did have some of the airfare credits and vouchers did expire, or they didn't translate at their full value. And so we used up more of those. And so some of those, there's an adjustment for those things that are in travel costs as well. So all in all, the cash budgeting and things were very effective. We've right now got cash balance of about $31,000 still, which is very, very good since our revenue coming in was much smaller than a normal year. And we are still owed the Texas Trust money. And so Craig might have touched on that in his update. We still are following up with them every week, asking where it is. It's been over 2 years now, and it's kind of getting frustrating with that. But, you know, they assure us oh yeah, they reviewed it, they talked about it, they're gonna send the money. So hopefully they do send that, and that would certainly be very, very good at this point to have that in. So between those two, we do have a good surplus and a good cushion for future years in that. And we were able to successfully navigate through this year's crises in that, and still are looking pretty good with that as well. So and that's what we have for this year in that. So, and I've got questions, it says, although Dave says we're going to take those at the end. So let me hit this here, and I can bring up, I think, our detailed projection. Just 1 second, please. Just 1 second. Let me see how I do this here. New share. This one here, I think. Okay, so you should see a QuickBooks report that says profit and loss on the top. So if not, just hit your bell or comment button, and Dave will let me know you can't see that and that. And so going through here, what we'll see is just as you can see, it's only that long. It's quite a bit shorter than a normal financial report that we had, just because we didn't have all the programs and things we had in a normal year. And so Warrior Stick program sales, this is the sales that went through the Warrior website in that. We had about 13.4 in sales through there. A couple of those are some big orders for school, and a couple teams ordered all their gloves and pants through there. And so we had that, and then the corresponding cost of goods sold is down here under, when we get down here, you'll see Warrior Stick program cost of goods sold. So we end up making, about $1,000 in that. And that's really the design of that. We're not trying to make a lot of money on that. We're really trying to pass that through to the teams as cheaply as possible. We do pay the freight on that. And so when a team orders like the 4 sticks, I think it's 4 sticks for $300, and our price is less than that, but we do pay the freight on that. And that's one of the other things in there. So it's not all exactly the differential being the income to us, but we do make, some money on that, which is nice. And it does provide a nice service to the teams to be able to have that out there too. And so this was really, really good. I thought this year we had $5,400 this year in application fee income. there was a lot of teams applying for new teams this year. And so that was really, really good to see a number of new teams coming in and potentially growing the ACHA again. And I think it is going to be a good year. I know we're planning our summer prospects camp and have had an incredible amount of interest in attending the camp this year. And so I think all over the nation, I think what we'll see is that everyone's ready to get back to the rink and get going as well, and get things going and get things back to normal as quickly. We did have 3 appeals this year, believe it or not, which has surprised me that somebody would appeal in our time of COVID crisis. But we did actually have 3 appeals, 2 from the same team. They were all denied, and those were all retained. Were all retained by us and that. So. Here's the national tournament income, and this is, I'll point out, our non-cash thing here. And so the $32,000 is what USA Hockey gives us. That is by division, and so it's a little less than it would be if we had all 5. But that's the rate of reimbursement for 4 divisions. So it's 4 out of 5, and they give us $32,000 for refs. In a minute, we'll look at like the referee expense for that. And then the sponsor fee is $10,000, which is what the broadcast gave us so far. So they gave us a $10,000 sponsorship fee in order for the rights to the broadcast and that. Plus they still owe us, apparently it's a $1 per game per viewer. And they're still, they say, calculating that out. And hopefully they're a little better at math than the Texas Trust people are, and it'll be here a little sooner than that. But they're right now calculating what that would be. And apparently a watched game is, and this is through the hockey TV system, is that anyone who tuned in to the website, they're all carried on the website, anyone who tuned in for more than 2 minutes, that counted as a view. And so if somebody had called up a D3 game and watched for 2 minutes plus, we would get $1 for that, for each one of those things. And so Craig's estimated that to be about another $7,000. That's not in yet. We've not had a calculation even of that. And so it's not recorded here. So this would be, about, another potentially $17,000, $18,000 in broadcast revenue, which is terrific in that. Here's our non-cash. This was all hotel rebates that were booked in a prior year, and they're not collectible. They're not. We either had an adjustment to the amounts or we didn't meet the room blocks, and so that's writing down those things from prior year on that. So it's just writing off these prior year hotel rebates. And this year, because we didn't have a state of play thing with any of the sites, we didn't have any hotel rebates, and so this is just all pure write-offs from a prior period. And so membership dues, we collected $253,000 in membership dues from the programs that were able to play this year, and that includes about $16,000 in the sustaining dues that we received from teams as well that paid those sustaining dues and that. And let's see, we had some miscellaneous other income and sponsor stuff. So we had total income here of $306,000. Here, printing for sale, this includes, we did do a score sheet order because I was running out at the end of the year for nationals and had to have some to ship. So that is for score sheets and for helmet stickers. And so the helmet stickers, of course, are like in other years, are absolutely free. You can send me an email and I'll send you a supply of those. Just let me know how many you need. Just put your shipping address in the email. I'll send those right out. Or people can order them if they're ordering something on the store. If they pay their dues, some teams will also check and say that they need helmet stickers, and that goes out in the mail and that. And that's the freight and such that goes. That's the freight and such that goes from shipping all of our other stuff that we send out throughout the year and that. So accounting fees. This is, as I mentioned, the CPA firm does our monthly account verification and does the bank rec, and they also prepare our tax return every year. And so that's the fee for them doing their magic every month throughout the year. And then $1,840 is our fee for Stu Grimson, who is our legal counsel. And there was a couple of matters that he helped us with this year, and that was his fee for doing those things as well. ACHA Media is a website that was set up to host the pictures from the national tournaments. And I don't know if you've been to the achamedia.com, but that's the one that comes in on a Stripe account. Should anyone buy any pictures in that? We've had a few picture sales come in. I think Last time I looked, there was D1 out there. I don't know if AJ has had a chance to load any of the photographs from the other divisions, but I think eventually the idea is to have a place where all those photos and videos would be available to go see. But that's the cost of setting that up and registering for an Amazon account and such. So here's the cost of goods sold for the Warrior, and so Warrior will bill us the gross, which is the cost of the product plus the shipping added on there, which comes really basically out of that same account and just nets those two things out. So that's paying for all the stuff that we sold in Warrior products and that. So software license costs, this includes, we've got our Gmail mail system. That's about $230 a month for that one. And then also, there's also some Microsoft Office licenses and things that we have around that all go into there as well. Storage is just a little storage area that we pay for to hold all the basically all the stuff that we have printed and ready to go for future use in that. So we've basically filled up all the free areas we had, and now we have a little external spot we can keep that. Depreciation is just on the cost of, that's mostly on the broadcast equipment that we have, and the idea right now is to start reselling that stuff. It's apparently with the new vendor, we don't need to have our own equipment, and so the plan is to start liquidating that as well. But this is the monthly or the annual depreciation cost and those things as well. Bank service fees, these are the PNC bank account fees, the monthly fee for basically the lockbox and the Pinnacle system, which manages our three checking accounts that we have. The fees are a little bit higher this year because they use a compensating balance calculation, and so since our balance was much lower than it typically is through the year because we didn't collect as much dues as we usually do. Usually we collect dues in the fall and then have a big expenditure in the spring, which means we have a fairly large compensating balance through the winter months, and that really lowers the service fees to really, $150, $200 a month. We didn't have that balance this year, and so the bank fees were much higher than it would be there. Those are about $1,000 more than they typically would be for a year, just because we didn't have the cash balance that we had. So let's see, postage mailing was that's our, again, the envelopes and postage and sending things to FedEx to teams or UPS should they need to get things quicker and that. Some of that also is sending out some of the postseason things from last year as well. So fax is for M1. They've got a fax you can send in score sheets and that, and then supplies are all the envelopes and crap for the administrative office and things like that. Website administration is for the monthly fees for our existing website, as well as the monthly fees for the ACHA store site, the shop ACHA shopacha.com goes into website administration. Those costs go in there as well. And you'll see in a minute there's one called website development, which is working on the new skins, trying to improve the way it looks, the way the stat stuff works, and hopefully we'll be coming out with a new release of the website shortly to really improve its usefulness in that. So that's our admin there, and then one of our biggest costs always is US Hockey fees. And of course, this is, as I mentioned, anytime that a team clicks and submits their roster, we get charged $700. It's an odd number because we do get charged for odd people if teams roster over 30 people. There's a charge for that as well, and so it's not always an even $700, but that's in there as well. And so that's the amount that we owe USA Hockey for those things too. So, so we got. I'm not sure what that one is. I'll have to look. Let's see. So here we've got our stipends are much reduced from prior years. In a normal year, we pay about $190,000 in stipends, and so we cut those basically in half this year. Computerized ranking expenses is to the service provider who calculates the computer rankings and develops the computer rankings for all the divisions, and so that's pretty economical rate for those things as well. Staff travel and expenses was some of the different events and showcases that Craig was able to do to go out and spread the good word of the ACHA and that throughout the year. And not a national tournament, and so this you can see is much different than it was in normal years, and so what we did with the trophies and awards, the trophies were paid for last year. So prior to the 2020 tournament, we had already had the trophies made. And so, you know, all the little bowls, the plaques were all done. And so this year, all we had to have, the trophy company just updated those plaques to the, you know, change it to 2021. And then the cost from last year's work rolled forward here. So it was capitalized last year, was brought forward, the cost was brought forward an expense this year. So that's the expense, but that was not all a cash outflow at that time too. It was just the differential. We did pay a little bit to have them redo the plaques, but that was cost we incurred last year, but we used it this year, if that makes sense. Signage, decorations, and displays was some things we had laying around. Again, those things we had in inventory from prior years that we sent out in order to be able to at least give some sort of imaging to the ACHA out there and take a look at, you know, having logos and some sort of signs and things, even though it was pretty minimal this year, certainly compared to last year's, it was very, very small. Staff apparel and gifts, that was really not gifts, but that was some costs we had for embroidering some of the shirts and things that were sent out and sent throughout to all the people that were working out there. If you were at one of the tournaments, you would see the ACHA people had like a fleece on, so you could tell that they were staff and they were there to answer questions and things like that. So referee travel, this was the cost of sending the referees out. They were pretty frugal about it this year. You know, they doubled and tripled up in a room. They didn't stay very long. You know, certainly they were trying to manage it as best they could, and we did utilize local resources where appropriate and where available in order to staff those tournaments and that. And then here we are in broadcast, and so we did have a bit of equipment we needed, but it was really this 6165 was $100 per person per game that Craig had put out there. That didn't, well, at least that's what he said. It didn't really work out to exactly that. I think people worked a split game, or they split it between two people, because it wasn't exactly $100 a game, but it worked out an average to be that between everybody that worked in those games and that. And so the broadcast expense, hosting it through Hockey TV, this year it only cost us $62.71, and as you recall from before, we've already got the $10,000 in, and we should be getting another $7,000 or $8,000. And so we will actually make money on the broadcasting this year. And the idea is to have that model going forward where, you know, we avoid the cost of equipment, we avoid all the costs of the network fees, the hosting fees, all those other things that killed us in prior years. Use local talent to do the broadcast where appropriate, or, you know, have teams could bring in someone, or have some other people that we can have help with that. Still have a quality broadcast, but do it for an affordable price. And certainly the Hockey TV model seems to be a very good one for making sure that happens. Referee fees, so this is what we actually pay to the refs who actually work the tournaments and that. So it's a little bit more than what we received from USA Hockey. If you remember back up here, we looked and we got $32,000 from USA Hockey. So we paid the refs a little bit more than that, but it's really, really close in terms of that. And so we only paid $328 net for the referees and that. For everybody that traveled, this was hotels, airfare, car rentals, everything else. So it was about $17,600 for the travel going out and all those places where they went and that. And then we did get some game pucks and equipment and some things to make at least, you know, we still didn't need to have practice pucks. And so everybody got, you know, 100 game pucks and a case of blank pucks to use, and then some other things to, you know, actually have the tournament run out there. And so that's across all the divisions and that. And so total national tournaments this year, which doesn't include, it's not all cash. Again, it was some expense. Some of these expenses were incurred last year. We just we used them this year. They would have been capitalized last year in an asset account as a prepaid. For example, we had prepaid trophies out on the balance sheet, and that expense comes out in this year and it's used up here. And so, and there was a lot of these, the decoration and things were stuff we already had printed. A lot of these things we already had printed. We just were able to use them where we didn't use them last year and that. And so, that's the total expenses for the year. And again, how we get to net income of about loss of about $14,000 for the year. So let's see if I can turn off this, and we can open up the floor to anyone then who may have a question about this, or as Dave said, financial driven, but that's okay. If you want to ask something non-financial, I can try to answer it too, but hopefully Dave's there to unmute everybody. Or is it, Dave, you're going to read them? Are they in a text thing, or?
Yeah, if you have any, you can submit it to the Q&A section. But yeah, they can't speaketh.
Oh, they can't. Okay, so yep, just go ahead and add a chat if you have a question.
So
anything you like.
Yep. And by the way, while we're waiting, if anyone wants to put one in, this is being recorded. So the plan will be is I will get it rendered and then get it over to AJ, and he'll get it up. And so our hope is within a short amount of time, it'll be up on the website. So if you know people, obviously, that may missed it for whatever reason, they'll be able to watch it. And of course, as Jim said at the beginning of the meeting, if you have questions and you weren't here, then you feel free to reach out to him. So if anyone,
you don't need to ask right now. If you wake up in the middle of the night and go,
yeah.
What's
if you're doing that, get a hobby. So, but if
well,
but
it happens to me, but
yeah. So going on. Oh, here we go. Someone asked how much money in broadcast equipment do we have on hand that will be sold?
Oh, what's the balance of that? We've got about, we're working with Dave at the inventory. We have about $70,000 worth of inventory. If you're interested in anything, please let us know. And apparently a lot of that hockey TV is interested in purchasing. That's financial, but I'm not really the guy working on that. Craig's working with AJ on that, and they're putting those lists together and getting it listed and talking to Hockey TV about sending that. So if you do have any interest in that, please step up, and we'll see if that's something possible to do, to list it to teams that may be able to use it too, because we do have a lot of stuff. So.
All right. Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. Sold. All right. So as I said, this will be rendered tonight and hopefully be up quickly. And then as soon as I get a chance, I'll put it up get it onto the website. There's that little middle section on the front page that we can change the videos that are listed there. So we'll hopefully have that. So if anyone's if you're a commissioner on, you're trying to find out or anything like that, that's where it'll be. Obviously, we'll put Jim's email as always on that, and you can contact him. But otherwise, probably the next time we'll be talking to you guys, we'll be getting ready for the season. So, guys, thank you, Jim, for this evening, and hope you guys have a great night.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.